straight, right?
Galloping off into the sunset.
In Minneapolis, though, at that time when you were a kid, what was that like? The rest of the year you weren't out in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I was. Well, I remember when at 4 when I first went to Wisconsin, I was thinking about Minneapolis. I happened to be in the orchard, thinking, and I was thinking about how beautiful it was in the country. I could see the edge of the woods and the little field of pasture meadow between, and then the orchard, and then in back of me was the house. And it was so it was so gorgeous, so beautiful, and it intimidated me. Now, years and years and years later, I was reading, who was it who married, reading Richard Burton, the actor, and he said, he talked about why he had become an alcoholic. This is when I was, growing. And he said, I became an alcoholic because I could not live up to or face the beauty of the natural world. The Japanese deal with that too much. They say it's the natural world is so incredibly beautiful that you have to have a special way of looking at it, or you just can't take it. You feel completely inferior to it. It is so beautiful. And they have a word called awade or something to specifically deal with that emotion. And it reminded me how I had felt or was feeling when I was sitting in that orchard, looking at this incredible woods, and the color and the shapes. And I thought everything in nature is gorgeously beautiful.
Do the Japanese have a word for the nature being too beautiful or something? That whole feeling of being overwhelmed?
Overwhelmed by it,
by the beauty of nature.
That's what the word means.
What's the word?
Owade or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know what it is exactly.
They have a lot of interesting words that other languages don't have.
A lot of interesting concepts.
Yeah, like this. They have an extra flavor called umari or umagi or something.
Yeah.
That's not salty, not sweet, not bitter, not sour.
Like bland?
No, like that meaty, zesty taste. The kind of MSG taste, actually. Beef jerky bite taste.
Yeah.
And I was uncomfortable with it. And then, of course, I thought of it years later when I was reading Richard Burton, and all I remember is being uncomfortable. My first impulse was to go back into the house. And I had a feeling that I shouldn't go back into the house. I should sit there, because I was, after all, a city kid. And this was my one chance to connect with nature. And if I didn't take it, I was never going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to have to sit there. I thought it was very important for me to sit there and stick it out until I relaxed.
Mm.
And so I did. I sat there. And I looked at the edge of the woods, and I began to think that everything in nature was beautiful. I couldn't find anything that wasn't. And I started to search for the tiniest thing I could find. And I looked at a little teeny pebble, and it had little red lines in it and striations and stuff, and little pieces of mica shining.
I know. I think plenty of times I go out in the woods, or you go to some beautiful place, but you've got your music, you've got your buddies, you got your beers, you got you got all these things.
Yeah.
Go out in the middle of the beautiful nature and crank the electric guitar music. Right. It's something about the uncomfortableness of.
You gotta be. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelmingly beautiful, and I start to think about what people consider beautiful, and the obvious things, diamonds.
Yeah.
But they're cut. I thought they're cut in these facets, and they're cold, and they're really not aesthetically pleasing. They're not natural. There's nothing natural about the shapes.
No.
And yet here in nature, everything is natural and everything is beautiful. Everything. So I tried to find something, the commonest thing I could find. I picked up that little pebble and I looked at it. And it was just as beautiful, no more, no less beautiful than everything else in nature. And I thought, well, nobody cares because nobody cares about pebbles. And I just stood and stared at it for a long time. And I thought, well, if anybody could have a pebble, if people thought that pebbles were valuable, then everybody could have one, and we would all be equal. But obviously, people are trying for diamonds because they confer status. They're rare.
Exclusivity.
They're considered beautiful. They have a perceived beauty, and mainly they confer status.
And even that's artificial because they really aren't that scarce. They're quite common. They're heavily, tightly controlled.
And I thought, well, that interesting. You should say that because my thoughts started to take on a certain pattern. And I don't mean to give myself airs, but kids really have a lot of sensitivity to these things. And my thoughts just went inexorably from one to another. And I thought, well, what if I knew they came from mines in Africa, because I had a child's encyclopedia that showed the blacks were mining diamond, raw diamonds. And I thought, well, what if they found a lot of them? And I thought, my first thought was, well, that would be good, because then more people would have them, and they could get into the elite class. But then I thought, no, wait a minute, the elitists are not going to allow that, because they want to keep the class small. Yet they're not going to be foolish and throw away the diamonds. So they'll put them in a drawer in a jewelry store in Switzerland or something. They'll keep them back.
Keep involved.
So the thought occurred to me, I'll never forget, it was just like somebody spoke to me. The diamond market is controlled. And I thought, wait a minute, if they can control the diamond market, they can control anything. So the thought occurred to me that the world is run by a very small, extremely powerful group of people who will do anything to maintain their power, and
their cartels.
And they run it as a private club for their own advantage.
Yep.
And I thought, well, that's a lot. That's a mouthful for one day. And I chucked it and went back into the house. But I had that running through my head.
All from you sitting, getting used to nature.
All from sitting, looking at a pebble. And I never had any reason to change my mind. I felt so liberated by knowing that it's all set up. This whole thing. I had it nailed at 4, if I may say.
Oh, you were only 4?
I was 4 years old. Just turned 4 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good critique and analysis of society with very little. Not much to go on, just a pebble.
Not much to go on.
No documents or anything.
No. Yeah.
Watching Sesame Street 4.
So I thought that there was a reason for my being up in the country.
So how did you get into actually starting to play the piano? Did your grandmother give you your first lessons or something?
No, I was in 6th grade, I think, before I got serious about thinking about it.
You're right, dude.
Yeah, my coccyx bone is a little sore.
I figured the pillow would help.
Yeah. There was a little girl in my 6th grade class who was admiring the piano playing of a young student teacher or something. He came in, and she said, "Oh, he looks so handsome, he's playing the piano." And I thought, well,
He's onto something.
I could I'm onto something here, And I started thinking about it. And that was 6th grade.
Did you know you wanted to play jazz?
Well, yeah, I think so, because when I was 9, I was quarantined at my grandmother's. I used to love to visit my grandparents, that is my maternal grandparents, my city grandparents. And I was listening to the radio. I was quarantined. I had mumps or measles for 2 weeks there. And there was very little to do except listen to the radio. And I pretty much listened to the radio all day, and the only thing to listen to in the late 40s was crooners. Like Sinatra and so on. And that style didn't really knock me out very much, but so I started listening with an ear toward finding something that I really liked, and I had just about given up. I was 9, and about 5:15 in the afternoon, a voice, kind of a southern voice, came on and said, "Now we bring you something old time Dixieland music from New Orleans." And they started playing that stuff, man, and I just went nuts. I thought, oh my God. I remember the hair going up on the back of my neck. It was so exciting. Actually, and it wasn't fast, it was Sidney Bechet, who was a soprano saxophone player. He was playing one of his classics called The Boulevard of Broken Dreams. This one. So that hooked me on that. And then the boy next door used to beat me up all the time. Billy Crookerberg. Apparently he was taking piano lessons, and my mother told me that the teacher had told the boy's mother that if he could find an additional student, so he could get 2 stipends by going to one place, then he would give the boy a little break on the price. So I didn't see anything wrong, objectionable about taking up the piano. So that's when I took up the piano. That was when I was 12.
And of course, the bully neighbor kid didn't stick with it.
Didn't stick with it. He ended up working a whole lifetime as he ran a complaint department in a department store.
What an awful job. Dealing with people complaining all the time.
It proves there's
Karma.
Right, because he made life miserable for people, right?
Oh, did he ever?
Well, what kind of stuff did he do?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because here's an example which will serve.